Hello and welcome to our international portion of the broadcast. Police in a small Indiana town hauled a 6-year-old from his elementary school and charged him with battery and intimidation after he kicked and threatened his principal. This conflict has attracted criticisms from all over the world. In order to better inform our viewers, we have prepared an in-depth dramatization of what's truly happened on the afternoon of Wednesday, April 25th. Hit the tapes.
So in 1492, when Columbus landed, stop talking.
No! Why don't you stop talking?
Go to the principal's office right now. So anyways, in 1492...
Stupid!
With the conclusive evidence at our disposal, our team believes the boy to have done any of the such following.
Finish him!
Police! Police! Go, we're taking you downtown.
Let's take a look at India and Pakistan.
On Wednesday, Pakistan successfully tested its new and improved Shaheen 1A ballistic missile, which is capable of carrying the nuclear weapons that Pakistan has demonstrated it is capable of producing. The Pakistan missile test comes just days after India tested its own improved ballistic missile, the Agni-V. Light up one of those multi-million-dollar candles, and you can demonstrate to the world that your nation is not to be messed with. You can also know that your neighbor will quickly follow with your test with one of its own. Retired Pakistan Army General Talat Massoud says that these tests have now become a predictable part of South Asian politics. India and Pakistan certainly have reasons to be annoyed with each other. They both claim to be the rightful owners of the Himalayan mountain region called Kashmir, but neither has the military capability or stomach to take away the portion of Kashmir occupied by the other. With these elements still in play, disputes over Kashmir, use of terrorist proxies, it's striking that India treats Pakistan in such a light manner. Let's go to our expert now on the situation, Landon, and see what he has to say about this.
Do you think that India and Pakistan are preparing for war?
That's an interesting question, but right now I would say no, I do not think war will break out between India and Pakistan. The reasons for this is that right now the use of nuclear weapons is mainly as a show of defense for countries to prevent other countries from invading them. This is shown also in the case of Iran, where some could argue that Iran is trying to develop nuclear weapons so that it can use it as a safeguard against larger countries who are enemies with it from invading them. Also, though, I do not think that India and Pakistan will become embroiled in war, because since India is becoming such a large economic force, it does not need to fear Pakistan at all, because right now its main competitor is China. Also, what that ties in with is that the US is currently in the Middle East, in Afghanistan, and many of Pakistan's interests lie in Afghanistan, and so India can be fairly assured that while the US stays in Afghanistan up until 2014, they will provide enough of a distraction for Pakistan in Afghanistan that Pakistan will not want to engage war at all. Also, seen as the US is allies with India, Pakistan would not want a potential enemy on both sides of its borders.
Is there any other ways this story relates to the rest of the world?
Another example of this ties in with North Korea. Recently they tried to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Kim Il-sung, their founding leader, with a ballistic missile launch, which they said as it was going to be a satellite. This launch failed though, but North Korea has also recently declared that they will be trying to launch another missile up into the skies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Summers.
Thank you.
Sudan, South Sudan, a developing story.
This just in, South Sudan says it will retaliate against Sudan for what it considers acts of war from its northern neighbor. Sudanese warplanes have continued dropping bombs on southern territory days after South Sudanese troops which withdrew from an oil town at the center of recent clashes. During a visit to China on Tuesday, South Sudanese President Salva Kiir said Sudan's recent actions amount to a declaration of war against the South. His comments followed a series of bomb attacks in South Sudan's unity state blamed on Sudanese armed forces. What happens in the next few days is very crucial on whether the two countries can avert the possibility of an outbreak of a full-blown conflict, or if they actually lead themselves headlong into a situation of all-out war. South Sudan's Deputy Defense Minister said, South Sudan's military, the SPLA, has been sending reinforcements to the border with Sudan. Tensions have remained high between the two sides after the SPLA withdrew from the town of Heglig, which they occupied for about 10 days earlier this month. Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir visited Heglig Monday to demonstrate that his forces were in control of the territory. He told soldiers that there will be no further talks with Juba, and that the South will only understands the language of guns and ammunition. I think Bashir is bluffing. He will ultimately come back to the table because he doesn't have many choices at hand. First of all, his army is in terrible shape. They have not withstood our pressure since the outbreak of the latest wave of hostilities, said Da Agut. The United Nations Refugee Agency, UNHCR, says recent fighting near the border has displaced some 35,000 people in parts of Sudan's South Kordofan province. The United States, China, and other world powers have called on Sudan and South Sudan to stop fighting and resume talks.
Over the past week, the relations between Sudan and South Sudan have become more strained over the oil profits and territorial disputes. After Monday's bombing of a market and oil field in South Sudan, the chances of conflict between the areas have become imminent. Tension has continued as South Sudan retreated from Heglig, and Sudan continues dropping bombs on its southern territories. The UN estimates the fighting has displaced around 35,000 people, and the United States, China, and Sudan's African neighbors have called for the fighting to stop. But South Sudan has said that they consider the aggression as acts of war, and if nothing is done, this may be the result.
Expert analysis, Jacob Gateman.
Why is the conflict between Sudan and South Sudan important, and for what reasons?
Okay, so the conflict between Sudan and South Sudan is important for a variety of reasons. Sudan's recent bombings of South Sudan are being considered an act of war by the South Sudanese. Due to this violation of South Sudan's sovereignty, it opens up the possibility of UN involvement in the conflict. This particular turn of events is very advantageous for South Sudan and will most likely turn public opinion throughout the world to the side of the South Sudanese. So the realist paradigm is coming into play for both countries in this situation. Sudan has lost one of their main resources necessary for their economy, and getting it back overrides their need to appear somewhat respectable to the international community.